In this video, I'm going to go over the Journeys section of the Player's Handbook. Now, the Journeys section of the Player's Handbook is actually the core rules for the hex crawl. The first part of this hex crawl would be the map. Now, the game comes with its own map, and that is the map that they expect you to use with the particular game. However, if you only have the PDFs, or you have a completely different game altogether that you're using, then feel free to use any map you can get your hands on that's hex based. Or if you want to do a true solo hex crawl, just get you a blank piece of paper with hexes on it and create for yourself some type of terrain generation chart. Now, the way this system works is it breaks the day down into quarters of the day. As far as this game is concerned, everything is broken down into 4 phases of the day: the morning, the day, the evening, the night. I have added on to the fact I actually put the times. I put from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to midnight, and then midnight to 6 in the morning. During the day, your character can perform a series of functions throughout that quarter of the day. The things you can do throughout that quarter of the day is simply hike, that is actually traversing the terrain. You can lead the way. This is the person that's sort of kind of in charge of making sure you go the right direction, things of that nature. If you are, say, playing D&D, I'm not very sure about 5th edition, but I've got every 3rd edition book and played 3rd edition for years. This would entitle, say, a wilderness lore check to make sure you're going the right direction and making sure you're not getting lost as you navigate. The next thing you're going to have is you're going to have a character assigned to keeping watch. He's the person whose sole job is to make sure nothing sneaks up on your party. Then, of course, you need to eat. So there's foraging, hunting, and fishing. Obviously, you're not going to fish in a hex where there's no water, but you can always forage and you can always hunt. When it comes time and you travel throughout the day, you'll eventually have to make camp. Of course, you'll have to rest and sleep as well. And then there's also the explore option. The explore option is merely nothing more than exploring that city, that dungeon, those runes, or whatever oddity your character has come across. And as you can see right here, there's a big chart here that'll give you bonuses and penalties to your foraging and hunting. If you're playing in a different game system, you might want to take a look at this chart and kind of convert it over to whatever game you are playing. Should your character fail in one of these actions, there is a mishap chart for all of the actions, of course, except for hiking. Like here's one for, when you lead the way, you actually step in quicksand, come across blocked terrain, get lost, sprain an ankle, torn your clothes, come across a landslide, there's a downpour, come across fog, you trip over a wasp nest, a mosquito swarm, a savage animal, or some type of persistent animal. And as you go through, there's a mishap for pretty much everything of all those actions that you can perform. I'll just skim through this real quick so you can just see. I don't want to give too much away. Once you get to where you're going, then of course you're going to want to explore. Now, the adventure sites that come with this game are, they give you a sample adventure site for each type: a village, a castle, and a dungeon. They also, in the DM's guide, give you charts so you can create your own adventure sites. If, however, you are playing a different system, then you'll have to come up with your own way to come up with your own adventure sites. This is where your charts that you make up come into play. Or, for example, I know if you have the old school D&D books, there's a random dungeon generator in the back. Somebody annotated on the Artichoke Dip Facebook page, 4 Against Darkness. I have the 4 Against Darkness PDFs, and they have a D66 dice chart for creating a dungeon that way. This is also where things like the Game Master Assistance cards that I previewed earlier might come into play to help you kind of flesh out a village or a castle or a set of ruins or whatever your character may come across while they're adventuring in the hex crawl. Another one that a lot of people are using that's kind of popular is the Scarlet Heroes. Scarlet Heroes has a solo adventuring chart system for Scarlet Heroes. Like I said previously, I have the Scarlet Heroes PDFs, and of course, I obviously have Forbidden Lands. Me personally, I like the Forbidden Lands one better. However, over time, as I go play the Forbidden Lands, I'm eventually going to hit all of the variations of the charts that come with Forbidden Lands. Now, at that point, I might want to expand my list, so I might use the list in the Scarlet Heroes. I also have other things that I will mention later, review later, that also help generate these adventure sites that your characters want to explore, fight the monsters, get the treasure, interact with NPCs, etc. So as you can see, the rules for the hex crawl are real simple. You break down your time into the quarter of a days, and then assign a job to the PCs accordingly. I just made a little cheat sheet for my party that I just created, and I wrote down what their appropriate skills are. And on that little cheat sheet right there on the front page, it tells me that my Hunter Ranger will be the one leading the way. The Druid is the one that's keeping watch. When they break for camp, it's the Halfling that will make the camp, while the Druid and the Hunter go out and forage and hunt and get their food. And then, of course, I broke it down so that the Wizard sleeps while the rest of the adventurers make camp. And then while the rest of the adventurers are sleeping, the Wizard is up keeping watch. So I've got that little breakdown of who's doing what job at each part of the day. Now, in the Forbidden Lands setting, there's also rules for creating your stronghold. Again, if you have the Forgotten Realms or the Forgotten Lands rulebook, you have those rules there. If you have the Forbidden Rules PDF, however, you can easily convert this to your own game system if you're playing a different game system. The way the setting is set in the Forbidden Realms, the world was covered at night with this blood mist, which made travel impossible. So each village was kind of landlocked away from the others. During the day, the sun was out, clouds, everything was nice and handy dandy. But at night, this blood mist would come in and eventually kill off things if you weren't protected from the blood mist. So there was not a whole lot of connections from the villages. Well, that means now that the blood mist has lifted, everybody and everything is going out in the world trying to raid these adventure sites that have been blocked off for hundreds of years. And your PCs can't just visit a city and drop their loot and say, I want to buy a +1 magic longsword, a boots of speed, or, the +2 armor of some type of crazy defense, because this is a low magic world. No one's been able to forge these things anyway, because no one's been able to actually access all the natural resources. Now that your characters are striking out into the world, they can go out there now, grab those resources, and spend that money buying a stronghold. A stronghold does lots of things for you. visiting your stronghold will grant you willpower. Um, as I stated in the previous video, willpower is what powers a lot of your abilities, so you want to get some willpower. But at the same time, when you build this stronghold, you're going to attract attention. And sometimes the attention is not the good type of attention that you want to get. As you can see here, here's a list of functions for your stronghold and the raw materials it will take to build it. And let's take, for example, you got a forge in your stronghold. If you have a fireplace and the builder talent, or if you have a hireling with the builder talent, because you can hire people to run the stronghold for you, and you get these raw materials, you have these tools available over the course of that time, your reputation will increase, and then each quarter of the day in which the forge is staffed by a PC or NPC with the smith talent or a hireling of the same name, up to a dozen units of iron ore can be converted and turned into the same number of units of iron. And then, of course, you can take that iron and build things like swords and armor and things of that nature. The book goes into pretty good detail on hiring your hirelings, how much they will cost, and what the supply is, common, uncommon, how easy it is to find said hireling of the type you may be looking for. As like I said before, your stronghold will attract attention. If you live long enough to become skilled and rich adventurers with a stronghold of your own, chances are high that word of your deeds will spread across forbidden lands, but fame comes with a cost. As your reputation score rises, the risk increases that your stronghold will attract unwelcome visitors. And then they go through the rules for battling at your stronghold and how to do the resolution. Gives you defense ratings and attack ratings. Kind of brings to mind, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button there, but it kind of brings to mind a very good movie made a while back, trying to defend your stronghold against the invaders. And then, of course, they have a section on gear and equipment, crafting gear. Like I said before, during in the core mechanics, your gear does play a role in your character. It can take damage. It also, pretty much every piece of gear serves a purpose of some type. Like here's a list of gear, and then on the opposite page, it'll give you the effect, such as increasing your arrow resource die, or how far the torch or whatever illuminates, whether or not the object will actually encumber the wearer. Bonuses against the cold if your characters are out in the cold and you don't have a campfire. If, for example, here's another list for buildings. Your characters decide that they're going to build their stronghold from scratch as opposed to, rebuilding a dungeon that you may have conquered or some other adventuring site. They have the charts in here you need for purchasing the buildings and the equipment to get those buildings up and running to perform whatever function that particular building will do for your stronghold. And then last but not least, we have critical injuries. As I said during the core mechanics video, if your character becomes broken as a result of combat, here's a critical injury chart for, say, slash weapons, blunt force weapons, stab wounds. And then the horror table. This is for like if your character should drop to zero, his mental abilities drop to a score of zero. Tells you how long it'll take to heal and whether or not the affliction is a permanent one or not. Whatever you do, however, you really don't want to roll a 66. Heart attack. Your heart stops and you die of pure fright. Scary ending for a character's career. The book contains a copy of the character sheet. However, you can go to their website and download a PDF version of the character sheet so you don't have to write in your book. You obviously don't want to write in your book. You don't want to mess it up. And that, my friends, completes the overview for the Player's Handbook for Forbidden Lands. I hope you found it all helpful. Until then, the next video, happy gaming!